Hi everybody, welcome to the first screencast for the Hans Wegner chair. I drew this loosely based on some photographs I found online. We're going to use the NURB surface command to create some curved surfaces. Then we'll use the shell solid command to give the bottom, the seat, and the back a thickness. We'll use the fillet edge tool to round over the edges. We'll extract a curve and then use the shell from the seat to create the cushion. We'll trim it using the project tool. We'll use shell solid again to give it a thickness, fillet edge tool to round over the edge, and then we'll have a nice cushion that matches the contour of the seat. And then lastly, we'll use extrude along a path or loft with a single rail to create our legs. We'll do some trimming with the split tool to taper our legs. And then lastly, we'll apply some RenderWorks textures for a wood grain and render this in final quality RenderWorks to smooth out our curves. I started with a photo that I found online that gave me a couple of different views. The views are not true orthogonal views or even a side view and a front view. They're not in the same plane. So I sort of copied, but mostly I got the gist of the design. I dragged them into my drawing just as a kind of a guideline, and I rescaled them using rescaled it using the scale objects command that we looked at last week. And what I'm going to do is switch to a front view, which will make my PDF disappear. But I'm going to try and do my modeling in the view that's going to help me out the most. So when I model the seat back, I'm going to model in a front view, and then when I do the actual seat bottom, I'll switch to a top or top plan view. And then when I want to do the legs, at least this back leg here, I'll switch to a side view, and then come back to a front view for the legs. So this will hopefully minimize the amount of rotating and repositioning in 3D for all my parts. The other thing I'm going to do is I've turned on the grid. This will especially help me when I switch to a 3D view. It'll help me see the ground plane. It'll also help me see what's the x-axis, what's the y-axis, and where the z-axis is. So I've just turned on the show grid button. There it is, turned off. Here it is, turned on again. I've switched to a front view, and let me switch back to fundamentals. And I'm just going to pull some quick measurements just to see. That's about 20 inches, but actually my seat back is going to be more like 30 inches and maybe 30 by 20 to start with. So for this drawing, I'm just going to do some freeform drawings. I'm not going to worry too much about precise measurements. We'll look at more precise measurements in the next drawing. For now, I'm just going to draw something that's about 10 inches across here. I'm just drawing the half. And then pull this out at a bit of an angle. I'm coming down to about 30. I'll droop down a little bit here. And then I'll use the mirror tool and mirror my object. And I started drawing on the y-axis here just to help me line stuff up a little bit better for mirroring. I didn't have to be quite so careful. I didn't have to pick up that smart point. I'll select both halves and add them together. It's closed, everything looks good. And now it's a polyline, so I can double click and reshape some corners. Let's see, I'll change it to a 3-inch fillet radius. Maybe I want to go to 4. I'll change this. And then I'll switch this vertex to a Bezier and this one to a Bezier. And I'm just kind of eyeballing just to see sort of general shape, but I'm sort of keeping this more free form. I'm not trying to duplicate this exactly. I'm just trying to be influenced by it. Maybe I'll pull that up a little. Maybe I'll pull that down a little, see how I like that. Not as much. I think I like this shape a little bit better. A little bit more squared off. I'm now going to convert this shape, which is a 2D polyline. I'm going to convert that to a NURB surface, create surface from curves. And I'm going to add some U degree vertices and some V direction ones. I'll keep the weight at 1 and hit return. And now when I double click, I get all my vertices. Now I'm in a front view. If I switch to a side or a 3/4 view, an isometric view, I can switch to a side view, and I need to figure out which vertices I want to pull and how I want to shape things, how I want to constrain things. And so the first time I'll do this, I'll just do a kind of trial and error. I'm looking at here's a top plan view. Let me get rid of no, I'm going to leave that. I'm going to see if I can constrain this along the Y axis. I'm looking at the green here, and let's see if my guess is right. I'll constrain along the Y, and yep, so I guessed right. I know that the green axis is the Y axis, and I can kind of see here that I want to bend along that axis. So if I constrain my vertices along the Y, I can only bend the shape in this direction. If I pull this point here too, I can snap to this point here. I'll switch to a side view to see how much curve I have. And I'm looking at my drawing here. I might want a little bit more. So I'll pull, and I can pull since I've pinned the whole row here of U vertices. It doesn't matter which control point, because the whole row comes with me. So I'm going to bend that a little bit more, and then I'll bend and match this, and I can snap to this point here a little bit more. I'll switch to a side view. That looks pretty good. I'm happy with that amount of curvature. Now my seat back is tipped about 30 degrees. I can do this at any point. I'll do this now. I'll use my rotate tool and rotate my object, and I can use the data display bar. If I tab in now, WPA stands for working plane angle, so this is the angle from the original working plane. In this case we were vertical, but in case your original object wasn't at 90, this data display bar rotates from the original working plane, and there's my 30-degree tilt. See how I'm just kind of eyeballing it. Maybe that's a little much. Let me try rotating maybe 25 degrees and see how I like that. Alright, that looks a little better.